Welcome back to the Win and Play podcast. I am your host, Sean Gary, national youth speaker and author, and we are in for a treat today. So, as always, before I even introduce my guests for today, y'all know what time it is. So, this is the Win and Play podcast, and we're going to give these Win and Plays to all the principals, teachers, parents, any youth advocates watching. You deal with young people, you're in the right place. Let's grow you. Let's help you to be better so that ultimately students will benefit and they can be better. So on the Win and Play podcast, we have our championship ring. So you get to pick first, which looks like all the options are the same.
Take blue raspberry.
And which one do I want to pick? I'm going to go with not that blue raspberry, this blue raspberry. All right. So I'm going to enjoy this. And today's guest, we are in for a treat because we have a principal in the building, guys. So this is Christina Fletcher, and she is a principal. And I can't wait to get into this stuff today because I'm sure there's plenty of experience that she has that's going to be beneficial to you if you are a principal, or if you're a teacher, or if you're a parent, or you're a youth advocate, somebody working with youth. You're in the right place. All right. So let's start with welcome. First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
And instead of like a long bio, because I know, especially I don't think you can be a principal and not have some kind of bio. The steps you took to get there, all the things you went through. So what I like to do is go back to the beginning, and I like to ask, when you were young, like when was it that you decided education? Was it something that happened young? Was it later? Like when did you decide, I think I'm going to go down this education road?
When I was younger, I always wanted to be a teacher. I was like, oh, I want to be a teacher. I want to grow up and be a teacher. And then I wanted to grow up to be a principal. I was like, oh, well, no, I want to be a principal. And so I said, I'm going to teach for a couple of years so that I kind of know about teaching and kind of learn the ropes. And then that way I can better interact as a principal. But I'm going to go straight to being a principal after a couple of years of teaching. But then I loved teaching. I loved it. And so it took years for me to come out of the classroom after I had done that.
Did not see that coming.
No, so I had this plan all laid out, but once I got in the classroom, I loved working with my kids. I loved like the lesson plans. I loved the activities. And so it took a long time.
How long? I gotta ask how long. Wait, first before you say how long.
Okay.
You originally wanted like 2 or 3 years to teach, and then switch.
I said 2 or 3. I said 2 or 3 years. I should learn the ropes and have a good kind of background knowledge for when I become a principal. But no, it took
how long?
It took forever. So I was in the classroom for over 15 years.
Oh my goodness!
Before I came out, and then I said, okay. It's time for you to move into administration.
15 years.
Yes, and it was a hard sell even then. Someone called me and said, hey, can you come fill in this administrator position just for a couple of weeks? And so I said, oh yeah, I can come for a couple of weeks and fill in. I have my licensure. And I was like, all right, it's time. I had to have that self-talk. Like, okay, this is what you said you were going to do.
15 years. I thought you were going to say like 7, 8 years.
No, I loved it. It was sad. Every time I would leave a position or a school to go to the next one, I would just cry about it. I would call my mother. I was like, but I love my kids. I don't want to leave. And she said, she's like, you love all of your kids. You love your new kids. Yep. It's okay. And so then I would move into different positions, but and mostly every position, like people called me to come to work with the kids at that school. So
Wow. That is cool, man.
It is.
I wouldn't have guessed that. So let's go back though. When you were young, knowing what you wanted to do, where did that come from?
Just being in a family of people who worked in education. So we didn't have teachers and administrators in my family, but they worked in education. My grandmother was PTO president, PTA president, and she worked with those organizations. So even as a small child, we would be at like the state conferences for PTA. We would sit on youth advisory boards and different things
Right.
for the public schools because of her position. She sat on the Board of Education for
Okay.
years as a parent liaison. And
Wow.
so as a little kid, I was at the Board of Education meetings. I remember sitting there in a little metal chair, swinging my feet, waiting for the meeting to be over because she was up front working as an advocate.
So like in the church terms, that would have been a PK. So like in education, we call it EK.
Yes,
so you was right there in the midst of it, just watching and whatnot. So and that must have seemed like really cool to see her like doing her thing and up there, and she held like a pretty decent position. You say she was in the front or something?
Yes, and so she was actually a nurse, but she worked as a lead for the PTA. And so she would establish different PTA groups at different schools. She would go into the schools to help them set up their PTA.
Wow.
And then she held a position for the state of Ohio's PTA.
Dang, so she was connected to multiple schools then.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. What's she doing now? She can get me in some schools. She probably long retired or what's she doing now?
And so now she is heavenly watching. And so I just won an award over this weekend for an outstanding principal.
I was just about to say, we was going to talk about that. I was like, we got to get to your award. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Because I was going to ask you more details about it because I seen it online. But I said, oh, that's perfect because I want to ask her about that. And what better person to come and share the game than somebody who's being honored and, So tell us more about that award, what it was, and how did you come about getting that?
And so our local chapter nominates a principal or administrator that they feel is doing outstanding work. And so some of the things that they talked about, because I said, well, how did I get the nomination, And so they talked about really just helping other principals. Like I'm definitely never the sole keeper of knowledge. If I know something, I will train, share. Yes. I want to make sure that things are easier for the next person. I want to make sure that everything that I know that I've shared so that we're all better as a team.
Right.
And so
we win.
Yes, yes. So we talked about kind of those things and even developing some different programs. There's some things I did at the district level. Like I sit on our truancy team for our district where we talk about student attendance and really the things that we need to do to help remove barriers so that our kids can be here. A lot of times there's instabilities in the home. Parents are just struggling to manage the adult things. And so sometimes school falls by the wayside because they don't have transportation to get them here. Or even some of our kids don't have clean clothes or they've had negative experiences in school. And so really trying to work with families to overcome some of those things. So I sit on that committee for our district. And then also I work with our student behavior committee. So we look at our data with data gaps and disparities with different subgroups of students, like with male students or African American students, to make sure that the things that we're putting in place we're not over punishing certain groups of kids, or we're not unfair in our consequences to certain groups of kids. So working with our whole community to make sure that we're filling those gaps in.
That's good. That's good. Are your students lacking confidence? How's their decision making in the school? What about their effort in the classroom? Are they giving it all that they really, really have? Well, these are things that as a national youth speaker and author, I address in school buildings. If you are dealing with any of these issues and you would like to have a fun, exciting, full of energy presentation, assembly, don't hesitate to reach out. My website is SeanGary.com. How they think about their next choices will be different. Go ahead and book a discovery call with me, which we simply have a conversation about what their challenges are, what their needs are, and then I can share with you what I would say, do, what talks that I have that address those areas, and also what an assembly would look like. And yes, I'm pretty much there the whole day. All right, thanks a lot. Now back to the episode. And so when how many schools then are you actually connected to that you're helping out and working with?
And so working with our whole district, so over 40 schools.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Kind of looking at their data And like, I'm a tech person, so I love to go onto the computer and look at technology.
Let's run these numbers.
Yes, I'm like, let's look at the data, let's make a graph, let's talk about it, let's put some things in place. So even at one point, I left the traditional high school to go work at an online school, and so doing a hybrid learning. And I realized that traditional school is just not for everyone. I had some students in that traditional high school setting, and they were struggling. But when I saw them with the online setting where it was self-paced and they could kind of move along, they were really just different students. They were more focused. It was just a different thing. And so I think a lot of times I'm talking to parents about finding what works for your kid, like, you know, not being stuck in that box. Some kids do really well with online schooling. I remember having students who would complete 2 years of school in 1 year of school.
Wow.
You know, 1 year's time, because they could test out of things, whereas in a traditional class, you're just sitting there, you're going over, you're going over whatever the teacher is teaching. And so for some kids, it worked out. So it was really great. And at that time, I was working at a dropout prevention school, so a lot of our students were struggling with attendance or behavior, different things, and so we were really trying to capture their interest and bring them back into the school. And so I loved being there. So when I went there, people were like, "Oh, you're gonna go over there? Oh man, that's a rough school. It's a rough." And I was like, "Nope, I'm gonna go over there. It's gonna be great." And I loved it. I loved it. It was one of my really one of my best roles. Like, I started off as an English teacher there. We started 2 clubs, so I was able to be the advisor of our young men and young women of excellence group. I started a student council there. We started having fun Fridays to boost our attendance. It was wonderful. It was
so quick question. Great. So adding those clubs was one of the things, was one of the things that you guys did that boosted attendance. Like, people were like, "Yo, I want to be at school. Or I got practice today for this." Or I mean, with that, I got to get. That's a nugget for y'all. That's a diamond right there. So I don't know what she going to choose at the end, but I'm just letting you know. Message, don't miss that one. If you're struggling with attendance and students not wanting to be there, look at what you have available for them. There could be an after-school activity, or I'm sure there's stuff that you could even have during the day that maybe you don't have that could be added that gives them another reason to want to be there. I know for me growing up, girls was enough for me. Like, I was like, I'm about to get this red and blue outfit or red or whatever. Like, I wonder what she's going to wear. Like, you know, just being able to connect with your friends and stuff and playing sports. Like, I never really wanted to not be at school, you know? But there's never been a time ever where I wasn't involved. You know, it was like I was always in stuff, from chess club to multiple sports. Like, I was involved.
And that's what I tell them. I said, all the fun stuff of school, most of it is after school. So I'm like, during the day, we're going to do some fun things, but most of the day stuff is learning. Like, all the fun stuff, all the hanging out, all of the, even spending time with their teachers in that fun way. I'm like, it's after school. It's all after school.
Come get it.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of fun there then.
Oh yeah, we had a ball. It was a great time all the time. Like, I was able to take the kids lots of places. Like, we had a Dave and Buster's trip. At one point we did hibachi. So for some of the kids, that was like their first hibachi experience. So it was really wonderful. Like, we went out, we did bow and arrow, did some archery, learning different things, but they had to earn all of those things. So it was a really great experience, like, to see them come from this place of really struggling in school or not being engaged, or even having just like social anxieties, and to really being into this place where they wanted to be there with us.
That's cool. Now, refresh my memory, was that the online?
Yes.
Okay, so you were able to provide these external activities after they do their online, but then they still have access to these clubs. That is cool.
Yes.
That is really, really cool, man. So even online, I have there's a school that's wanting to bring me out, but she was like, you know, I gotta get you. And so she was surprised when I called her back, because she reached out to my team. And she was like, wait, this Sean Gary, you know? I said, yeah. And she was like, oh my gosh, that was so fast. I just filled out your stuff. She was like, now here's the thing. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. What's up? And she said, it's an online school. And I said, okay, it's online. And she said, so I want to bring you out to do the online or get you logged in to do, but she said, but we can't guarantee they're going to log in. So we talked about some different things. I was like, I can make sure they log in. I got some things to make sure you drop this, but they're going to show up. They ain't going to want to miss out on what I'm going to bring. But yeah, that was my first experience of somebody saying, we want you, but it's not like a physical thing. This is going to be virtual. I was like, okay.
And that's cool because during COVID, I think a lot of places expanded and they had to figure out how to do things online. Like I remember being in the traditional high school, but I was like, oh, we're doing an attendance award. So we were figuring out how to do slideshows and put the kids' names in and broadcast it online so that they could still have those like awards assemblies and things that I didn't want them to miss out on those things.
Yeah. Man, I feel so bad for the ones like proms and stuff that people missed out on. It's just like, oh my goodness. Perfect segue. What are your thoughts on, because we're going to come back to the story and your journey, but what are your thoughts? We're talking about COVID and just that year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. What have you seen? Because I know what I seen, but I know yours, you done seen it better. And Mo, you done seen a lot more than me. And you like the numbers and everything else. So the data, what have you seen as far as the gap? Like there's a group of students that have missed out on a lot of their learning, and it's showing now. We're back. A lot of places are back. There are a few places that are given the option they can be online or not. But I've heard some stuff and I've seen a few things where students are further along, older now, higher grades, and there's a gap of understanding knowledge. Like how do you not know this stuff? And it traces back to when they were supposed to learn it. What have you seen with that? What has been the biggest challenge?
Really, I think when we first came back from COVID, it was really just getting back into the routine of doing school. For a lot of families, they were just doing the best they could. Like, all right, let's get to the computer. Let's sit down. Let's do the packets. Let's do whatever learning they had in front of them. But they were still trying to go to work and they were still trying to manage the household. And those people are not, certified licensed teachers. And so it was really just such a adjustment going from, all right, I'm going to log into my computer to, okay, I have to get dressed again. I have to do homework again. I have to physically get up and go to school. So a lot of what we saw initially was like just the social aspects.
How so? To give us more.
Oh, so like kids were not used to even just sitting at a desk. Like kids would come in, kick their feet up on the table, or they wanted to come in their PJs. And so for a little while, like schools were like, we're just happy to have you. Because like some people were still afraid to come back to school. So we're like, okay, just come on in. And then it went to that place of, like I said, the social, where they didn't know how to interact in person with people. Somebody would bump into them and it was like oh my God, somebody bumped into me. I'm like, just say excuse me or, keep it moving. Like, so some of those things where they just hadn't really socialized outside of their family or their household. And so getting them into that space where. Real quick,
what grades was this when you what were you teaching wise and what were you seeing?
So when COVID first happened, I was still in the high school.
Okay. So this is all high school interactions you're talking about right now?
Yeah, initially it was, gotcha. So I spent about 16 years in the high school and then I transitioned into elementary. And it was just, so the high schoolers, it was the same thing. They weren't used to people being by them. They came back to school with a lot of, I got anxiety. I don't like to be around people. I don't want to be in large groups. And so really trying to help them kind of work through those spaces, helping them to kind of think about, okay, what's causing the anxiety? Is it just that you're uncomfortable because you're unfamiliar? Or is it something deeper, more, underlying things, kind of with mental health and things like that? So really trying to transition the kids back and trying to transition the adults and the staff back because
yeah.
now, you know, we have kids who are not used to being with kids. We have kids who are not used to working. And then even some of the adults still have fears about, you know, coming back into the school.
Don't
school
you sneeze
spaces.
on me.
Yes, yes. So some of those things.
Hand sanitizer.
Yeah, yes. And then after we got back initially, then I transitioned to the elementary. So it was surprising to see some of those same things with little kids saying, you know, and they would just tell you like, I got anxiety. I can't be around people. I don't like this, or, you know, I don't want to.
The little ones.
Yeah, I mean, little ones where you're talking about 3rd and 4th graders who were, you know, afraid to sit next to people and please, nobody cough. Nobody cough, nobody sneeze. Yes. Like, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. So, like, trying to help them in those spaces.
You need 2 masks.
Yes. Yeah. You need a tissue. They got to go home. Right. So helping them.
I'm telling my mommy.
Yes. That somebody sneezed today. So helping them get into those spaces where they can still do school. Helping them like, okay. Someone sneezed. We went through these steps. We went through this protocol to make sure that everybody is safe. And that sneeze was an allergy, or checking that sneeze was a common cold or different things like that. So, yes.
Where was I at yesterday? I was somewhere. Hold on, I'm gonna try to remember. But they still had a sign up. It said like, if you're feeling sick today, go home. Like, don't come in. Yeah. And it's like, even to this day. Somebody had a mask on the other day.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, and I don't know their reasoning. It could be they was wearing masks before, for their medical condition, whatever. But I remember thinking like, man, there was a time
it's different
when everybody had one on.
Yeah. And then even you think about like, so when you have all of this kind of fear and anxiety, then what does learning look like?
Oh my gosh.
When you don't want to be next to anyone, or you don't want to come into a school, like how do you, learn in that space? And
my goodness.
It was a lot of
6 feet. I remember everybody was 6 feet.
Yes.
You had to be in one school I was at. They were lining up and like in the hallways and just different things, and they all had these different dots that they had to line up on, and they were 6 feet apart.
Yes.
I'm like, every line was like wrapped around the building 3 times because it was so long, because all the spaces and the gaps.
Right.
I was like, man.
Yeah, even we had dividers in the cafeterias, the same thing, the dividers.
Yeah, I remember the
dividers. Classrooms.
Eating in your own space.
Yeah, little dots in the hallway. So definitely a transition to get back into the space of school. So some of the kids still behind, because some people did not come right back. And so some students were still out. So academically, like they missed a lot of content. And so when I'm talking to parents about attendance and missing days, like I think it's funny to me because parents will say, well, they said they're not doing anything the first 10 minutes of school anyway. Like that's what they late. I'm like, okay, well, even if during the first 10 minutes, if everybody else is transitioning by putting their book bag up, putting their coat away, getting their homework out, reading the agenda on the board, if that's what they did the first 10 minutes, and then when your kid gets there, if they're starting the learning process, your kid is putting their coat away, taking this stuff. Yes, I'm like, so they're 20 minutes in, still getting ready, and everyone else started 10 minutes ago.
No, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
so just even those few minutes, yes, where they thought they were doing nothing, or even when they say, I'm gonna keep them home because they weren't doing anything all day. I'm like, man, have you ever been in a room with 20 kids? Nobody is gonna have them do nothing for 6 hours. Right. Yes, like no, I'm like, no, never.
They just been sitting there doing nothing. That's what he told me.
Yes, because they laugh at dismissal. I ask them, I'm like, what did you learn today? And so sometimes they're like, oh, we didn't do anything. I'm like, I walked by your class. Y'all had the books out. Y'all were doing this. And they're like, oh, yeah. Well, we did read some stuff and we wrote some stuff. I'm like, oh, okay.
Now you remember.
Yes. I'm like, you just said you were doing nothing.
Didn't do nothing all day, right? That easy answer to try to get out of having to think about what did we do today?
What did we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay.
Helping them.
All right, so let's go back now. So you were younger watching, and that was your mom or your
grandmother?
Grandma, right? Okay.
Yes.
So you were watching grandma crushing it, well established, and you just in that environment. What was next for you? Like, so you knew then, or later you thought about it and said, you know what? Because of that, I want to, or you knew then, like I want to do something in education too?
And I knew then I wanted to do something in education. Like I said, it was kind of flipping between initially, okay, I'm going to be a teacher, then no, I'm going to be a principal. But really, very early on, I would say probably in high school, I was like, oh, no, I'm going to go into school administration. That's what I want to do. And so at one point I got a scholarship. And so I was working with, I had mentors from elementary. And I remember asking this lady, her name is Dr. Hudson. She worked at, shout out Dr. Hudson. She worked at University of Toledo, and she was the first person I had met who was a doctor, who wasn't a medical doctor. And so I remember talking to her saying like,
what kind of surgery?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, what kind of doctor? And she's like, well, not that kind of doctor. And I was just like, well, explain
what
this
you mean.
Yeah, explain it to me. And so I remember her talking to me about, you know, when people can go to school and you can get these types of degrees. And like, I was all on it at that point. Then I was like, oh, okay, so I can be a doctor of education. And she's like, yes, I have a doctor of education. Nice. So I was like, that's awesome. And so she did. She mentored me all through high school and college. Even when I got onto the campus, really first generation college. I remember going to her office like, I don't know how to do this schedule. And I remember her sitting down like, okay,
let's work through it.
Yeah, let's work through this. Let's look at your classes. Let's do this and that. So she really took a lot of time with me to make sure that I got what I needed there.
Yeah. And so, how did y'all meet? Who was she to you?
And she was after school. She ran an after school program.
Okay.
For my apartment complex.
Nice.
She partnered with our school district, and some teachers came in, and she came from the university, and they brought students from the university, and they would help us do our homework. Nice. They would help us do all these type of enrichment activities.
For high school students?
And that was for elementary school.
Oh, really?
So I met her as an elementary student. And she mentored me all the way through. Yes.
Wow.
Yep, to college. And so even now we still stay in touch.
That is really cool.
Yeah, she'll reach out. So that's
that's cool.
Years.
So she could say she like can see her DNA on you, like her. She's left an imprint from that time all the way. Wow.
Yes, long
That's
time.
Discipleship right there.
It is. Man. It is. And so
I bet she proud. I bet she proud.
And that's what I said. We stay in touch, and she'll check on me. She'll ask how things are going. Ask about the other. When we're all adults now, but students who were in the program, the after school program, and some of us stay in touch. So
that's what's up. Dang, that's what's up.
It is awesome.
So you met her in elementary school, and that was when the program that she was running you were part of.
Yeah.
And then in middle school and high school, when you stayed in contact, was it still through the program, or
some of it was through the program, and some of it was like her just checking to make sure that I was getting to college. Because I told her, I said, okay, well, I'm going to be a teacher. Nice. And then by the time I got to high school, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be a principal. She kept saying, well, you can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and she kept checking to make sure that I was doing those things. And so by the time I got to college, you know, dope. I knew where her office was, and I knew to go there to get help. So
right where to go.
Yeah.
And the power of influence of your word and your presence to a young person. You never know how far and how long it goes and how impactful you are to a young person. Just taking that extra couple seconds, extra couple minutes to share something. Yeah. It's nothing to you because you do it every day. You do it with your eyes closed, in your sleep, backwards and forwards, upward and down. But to them, you sharing that one little thing to you is huge for them, and it means a lot. So